6:30, we'll call the meeting to order. It is the Monday night, October the 3rd, 2020, meeting of the Community Development, the Committee of the Whole Community Development. Tells me every time. I know we have a couple of people on Zoom. I believe that it's Ms. Lauren McLeod from Capstone. Welcome, Ms. McLeod. And I believe, is it Mr. Malcolmson that's there as well? So welcome, Mr. And if it's Ms. Malcolmson as well, welcome to the Zoom portion of our meeting. Before we begin, I have just two quick things that I want to say. I didn't take the opportunity at our last council meeting to thank Treasurer Melanie Stubbs for all the hard work that she's put in. I regret not taking that opportunity on the record to do so. Mel's certainly been a pillar of strength in the township, and I should have taken that second to thank her for all the hard work that she's put in and all the guidance that she's provided me. She's been great. To all the members around the committee, I don't know if there is a November meeting. It sounds like it could be a combined meeting. So to all of you that have been here over the term, Connor, Chris, Greg, and Cody, who's not here, so I send his regrets. I just want to say thanks for all your hard work. It's been an honor serving with you on the Community Development Committee. The last one, I just want to recognize Cody Otway as well. I saw today that he's accepted, he is one of our firemen, our volunteer firemen, and he's accepted a full-time position as a fireman with the Brockville Fire Department. So well done and congratulations, Cody Otway. Okay, sorry for that. There is no chair's moment at the end. I wanted to get that on. So the number 2 portion is approval of the agenda. Could we have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Greg Mossler, seconded by Councillor John Hunter. All in favor? Right. Moving on, number 3, which is disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature thereof. Does anyone have any disclosures? None. Moving on. Are there business arising from the community committee meeting minutes? Anyway, Councillor Bylaw.
Thank you. On page 467, I just want for the record that I asked to report on the multi-service court, Johnstown Court. We were unsuccessful with the grant, and we kicked the can again to bring up the 2023 budget. So I just want for the record that we have a $45,000 donation from the Port of Johnstown. I will be asking if they could send a letter to South Ellisburg Recreation Association for the record that there's $45,000 donation for the multi-use tennis court in Johnstown for the 2023 budget. Thank you.
Councillor Bilbao, any further items on minutes? None. Moving on to our delegations and presentations. So welcome, Lori. Lori Kilmartin is in the gallery today, and Mr. Abrams, I'm sorry, I'm not electrical technologist from Capstone as well as with us. If anyone has any questions for the technologist, and on Zoom is Miss Lauren McLeod. So welcome to all of you. Ms. Kilmartin and Ms. McLeod, usually 10 minutes for presentations, but we're certainly open with that time. So welcome and fire away.
Is Lauren on Zoom? Okay, so she's going to start the presentation. She was going to put it up, I believe, and start it.
You see shares. Okay.
She's not able to use herself.
Yeah. Well, works well when it works.
That was just a little under the computer, I'm muting myself, that was using the request on mute, but.
All of them.
You know, I sent the request to unmute, but it seems to be on her end and not doing that. But she should be able to override it here.
Ms. McLeod, if you have the ability to unmute your mic, I know Wendy has sent through, or excuse me, the clerk has sent through a request to unmute your mic. If you're having issues doing that, can you let us know?
There's some, unfortunately, looks like something like the range of it. Our end is making okay, we've done multiple meetings today. Is she able to? is she
Let's see.
able to-
The deputy,
Sorry. Is she, would it help maybe if she log back in?
deputy clerk's there. Maybe we can ask the deputy clerk to see if she can unmute her mic, just to confirm that it's something. Yep.
I'm all good here.
No, that's ours. That's deputy clerk. So it's something on Ms. McLeod's and okay, so shall
Or to sign up.
That's, I mean, if she logged out, logged back, in,
Sure,
maybe
try that.
I would try it.
Lauren, is there any possibility that you could log out of the meeting and then try logging back in to see if that may help?
She indicated that she can try phoning in via phone. We offer phone capability as well. She can log in. And we will phone in there.
We'll get there.
Sorry.
Got it. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Can you can hear us? Can you talk and see if we can hear you?
Lori, where is she calling from?
Toronto, somewhere near Toronto. I mean, worst case scenario, I could read her slides and we can go through it with you.
Let's just see if we can.
She's got the background for part of it. But I think I've seen the presentation.
I'll give her a minute to get
Yeah.
into-
Or let her try the phone thing. If that works.
There's somebody
There
there.
she is.
Oh,
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. You might have just muted yourself again.
there we go.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Welcome.
Oh, good. Thank you for taking the time for that to get sorted out. Sorry about that.
Problem. Welcome, and you can begin
Okay.
your
Let me
presentation.
go ahead. Wonderful. Thank you. Let me just share my screen here. Okay. You should be able to see my presentation now, I believe.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you again for taking the time to allow us into your agenda today and allow us to present our company and our project to you during the committee meeting. So again, my name is Lauren McLeod. I'm a development manager at Capstone Infrastructure. And today's presentation, I'm just going to go through, or Lori and I will go through a little bit about our company, about the Cardinal gas plant that's currently operating in your area, and then about the ISO procurement and the battery storage project that we're looking to potentially develop within your area. So like I mentioned, our agenda will be talking about Capstone, an overview of the ISO procurement, battery projects in general, just to give a little more knowledge on what exactly we're looking to build, and then what our company specifically is looking to build. We'll go through a few local benefits, and then at the end, I'll just briefly touch on the municipal support resolution that we're looking to get essentially your approval on today to move forwards and put into our proposal package for ISO.
Okay, so I'm going to take over.
So Lori, thank you, Lori.
No problem. So Capstone Infrastructure is a Toronto-based independent power producer based out of Toronto. That's where our corporate office is. Was founded in 2004. They develop, own, and operate 30 facilities with a total net of 776 megawatts, including wind, hydro, which is water, electricity produced by water, solar, biomass, and natural gas cogen, which is Cardinal. There's 140 employees across North America, from BC right to the East Coast. They're the proud owner of us, Cardinal Power, which is here in Cardinal. And Capstone has also been a major player in the renewable energy market in Ontario since 2005. There are 17 wind and solar facilities coming online, totaling 278 megawatts. Slide. So that's a picture of Cardinal. I'm sure everybody here is aware where the plant is. We're the white building down in the corner, that's Ingredient to the other side of us, and the old Benson Public School, which is now owned by Ingredient in our backyard. So we're just tucked in behind there. The little building is a water intake building, and the small building on the side is our water treatment plant. We have underground cable that goes up to the riser station at the north end of Cardinal and goes up to King Road, where we tie into the grid. Six kilometers of line.
Yes.
Yeah, six kilometers of line up to the RSS station. And so a little bit about Cardinal. We're 156 megawatt combined cycle natural gas cogeneration plant. We have a gas turbine and a steam turbine. We commenced commercial operations in 1994. At that time, we had a 20-year contract where we ran 24/7, 7 days a week, and put power up to the grid, and we provided steam to Ingredient. We were under a dispatchable non-contract at that time. We also provide cost-effective, reliable steam and air to Ingredient under an energy savings agreement with them, and they are also dependent on us for that transmission line. So anytime we're down, they are feeding through that line as well. We both use that line. We, for 20 years, provided free heat to the Benson Public School, actually more than 20 years, because just up until they shut down, we provided free heat to them. And in 2014, our contract was coming to an end. We signed a new agreement where we're now a dispatchable power plant. We bid into the market, and it's a day-ahead market. And as such, we don't run every day. So what we did, because Ingredient still needs steam, they built a 50 megawatt plant on the property right beside our plant, which they own, but we operate and maintain for them. And this new agreement with them is to look after this 50 megawatt facility and operate it. We're vital, we feel we're vital to the community. We've supported many charities and functions. We're the second largest tax base in Cardinal, not Edwards for Cardinal, but in Cardinal, I would say next to Ingredient. We, use the local stores, the hardware store, the restaurants, Grenville Tool and Die. We've supported with donations to the schools. We give a bursary to the high school that goes to an Edwards for Cardinal students. Swim teams, we'd be trying to do everything that we can to help out. And the Cardinal team, there's 19 full-time employees. There's always 2 people on site, 24/7, always a first or second class power engineer, and then their assistant. We have a mechanical technician, an electrical technician, an electrical technologist, who's also a high voltage specialist, who's Herb Abrams, who's here with me today. We have 2 instrumentation and controls technicians, and then there's 4 leadership roles: the plant manager, Keith Peddle, the operations manager, Dennis Tomas,
maintenance manager, Barry Mayhew, and myself, the office manager. Just a little bit of interest, when the plant was first built, there was 15 employees. There's probably still about 4 or 5 employees that have been there from day one. Myself, I've been there for 29 years. Herb over 20 years. When people come to work there, they stay to work there. It's a great place to work. So this is just a little bit of background information about our impact on the economy. This study was done in 2012 before we signed our new agreement, and just showing what the economic impact is. The study was done by KPMG, so they're saying, so just time, this goes back to 2012, still has some significance. Cardinal Power and Ingredients supported 1,238 jobs and 121 million in value added to the Ontario economy every year. The two firms generate approximately 9.1 million in taxes, excluding corporate taxes, with an estimated 3.4 million in personal income taxes. And the capital projects in 2015 to 2017, so that was when we refurbished our plant, it was around $30 million we spent at the time. Created an additional impact throughout these years. Together, they generated an estimated 252 person years of employment, 22 million in value added to the Ontario economy. I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. So I'll go into a little bit of the ISO capacity procurement now. So as many of you may have heard, Ontario is entering into a period of emerging electricity system needs, and that is driving a increasing demand. So with various items such as the retirement of the Pickering nuclear plant and the refurbishment of other nuclear generating units, as well as other expiring contracts with existing facilities, there's been an identified need by ISO to create more electricity to feed into the system in the upcoming years. So ISO, the Independent Electric System Operator, identified some areas within Ontario that there's a greater need in comparison to potentially some other spots in Ontario. So these areas that were identified, which include the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, they were identified as needing some additional capacity to be brought onto the grid in Ontario to meet those needs in the load growth in the upcoming years. So ISO came out with a expedited and long-term RFP. And through this RFP, they're looking to procure about 5,000 megawatts of capacity. That's in total, and I think it's about 3,500 megawatts in the expedited specifically, and then 5,000 total, like I said. And then ISO is to kind of work through the various developers or companies that were bidding into the RFQ and the RFP. ISO ran a qualification process back in the summer 2022. And through that, they shortlisted some of the participants that were looking to bid. So there was originally 90 applicants that were looking to bid into the RFQ and RFP. And then they narrowed it down to just 55 applicants, which Capstone Infrastructure was included on that list. And they narrowed it down by way of reviewing the various financial capabilities of the companies, as well as the project experience that the companies brought to the table. So experience that they looked at was not only financial experience, but also doing development, construction, and operations of systems in Ontario and beyond. So the procurement timeline that ISO has kind of set out. So they had launched this RFQ back in the summertime in June of 2022, and they're following an accelerated schedule for this because they have identified that this need is coming up in the next couple of years. So they're thinking 2025 is when they really will need this electricity supply and reliability needs. So the RFP rules and the form of contract are still undergoing some consultation within our industry, but we did receive a draft of what they're looking for just about a week and a half ago. So our company and other developers have been reviewing that in the recent days. And then the qualified applicants were invited to submit a total of 10 requests or 10 projects into their deliverability assessment. So that happened in mid-September. And through that assessment, they're going to be telling us how much we can actually connect for our project. So the total megawatts that we can actually connect. So we're looking to get those results by the end of November. That's expected November 30th. And that'll give us a little more guidance in terms of what kind of project we're actually able to look to develop here. So just kind of summarizing at a high level, the table at the bottom here. So it's just showing you that the final expedited process, so the documents summarizing everything that we'd be requiring. So essentially things that we'd be working through with you if we were to move forwards here. Those final contracts are expected to be released November 1st, so in about four weeks now. As mentioned, that deliverability test, which gives us a little more guidance in terms of what we can develop, is expected November 30th. And then the expedited proposal submission is going to be December 20th. So that's essentially what we're working towards right now at Capstone, is to propose or to prepare a proposal to submit in that December 20th submission. And then once ISO has reviewed that, those proposals from everybody, they'll be giving a contract offer to various candidates by February 28th of 2023. So ISO RFP rules and community benefits. So the draft expedited and LT1, which is the long-term one RFP, sets out mandatory criteria and rated criteria. So essentially the mandatory criteria is items that ISO is requiring essentially as a pass or fail that each proposal has to have included within the submission. And then the optional criteria or rated criteria is essentially bonus points that they would essentially give to the proposal to understand which ones they want to move forwards or not. So kind of just to give you a little flavor, like among the mandatory criteria that they'd be rating us on are items that are such as like whether the applicant is qualified, so whether we were qualified in their initial process, whether we as a company are able to deliver the continuous electricity through the project we're looking to develop and construct, what we did receive on those deliverability results for the locations that we'd identified that we want to build within and connect to, and then just simple things, whether the proposal itself is meeting the submission criteria, and then also whether or not the project's on indigenous lands and whether we're including that within our proposal for the project. And then amongst some of the rated criteria that were being evaluated on by ISO within this proposal are items such as the specific locations themselves and whether they fall within the priority zones. It's not a requirement that it does, but of course, having our projects within those priority zones that ISO identified, they're going to be the top ones that they want to move forwards with here. And then there's also items such as duration of service, community participation, local governing bodies and support resolutions, which is essentially what we're looking for from you today. And then to touch a little bit more on that municipal support, it is something that we're identifying, even though it's a rated criteria, it's something we've identified as being critical to the proposal for the prioritization of the projects. So not only is it helping with when we're achieving low cost, but it's also helping to expand the social benefits and participation. And given the competitive nature of this RFP process with the various 55 developers that are essentially bidding into it, we are anticipating that in order to get a winning project identified by ISO, that we would need to secure those extra rated criteria points. So I'll touch on that municipal support resolution a little bit later, but that's just to give a little heads up in terms of what we're looking for today. So battery storage systems as a whole, like this is kind of just in general. First of all, battery energy storage systems are often referred to as BESS, so the acronym BESS that you'll see at the top there. But one key attribute of a BESS project is that unlike something like a solar or a wind turbine farm, or even like our gas plant in Cardinal, the footprint that a BESS project actually has is a very low profile in comparison to the larger energy projects that we've been developing. So for like a 200 megawatt project, battery project, we would only require about 2.5 acres of land at most. Some can be cited on as low as 1 acre, but I would say 1 to 2.5 acres is a general rule of thumb for what we would actually be looking for to actually site this project. So it's a much smaller impact to the local footprint there. And then just at a high level as well, what a battery storage project would include, some main components that are included within the battery container would be the battery system, the cells that are stacked in there themselves. There'd be a battery management system, a energy management system, a fire suppression system, an HVAC system for cooling, inverters would be included in there. And then external to that battery container, we would also see things like the access road to get to the project site, and then a project substation as well, which we're planning to build with this BESS project. So included in that substation would be a high voltage step-up transformer as well for the project. And then just as a note, BESS projects are actually fairly easy to operate as well. So they can be monitored and operated remotely, and they can therefore be monitored 24/7, which is a great advantage. So what we're looking for in terms of our battery project in the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal is that we're looking to leverage the operations that we have there at Cardinal currently, and we're looking to develop a BESS project of 156 megawatts. We're currently in discussions with several landowners in the area, and we're using land agents that are local to help us out with those conversations. So we do have a few landowners that are showing interest. No land signed at this moment, but we have a few conversations that are reaching some deeper negotiations for landowners that are looking to either lease or sell their property. And then those properties are sited essentially along the 115 kV transmission system. So that's what we'd be looking to connect through for the project. And then in parallel, what we're kind of doing right now, this project is of course still in early development stages, given kind of the stage of the deliverability test, first of all, but also just where we're at in terms of the development as a whole. But we are in parallel to waiting on those results. We are also reaching out to various suppliers to start the RFP process for the battery equipment to have a better understanding of what type of system we would actually want to install in Edwardsburg Cardinal. And then this map here just kind of gives you the yellow square that's outlining quite a few parcels here, just kind of gives you an idea of the area that we've been focused on with our land agents in terms of the land acquisition. So once we get further clarity there on who we're going to sign, we would have a better idea of siting for the battery project. And then in terms of BESS project benefits, there are some short-term and some long-term benefits that are seen with these projects. So similar to items that Lori was actually mentioning for the operating Cardinal gas plant that's there, there's benefits such as like even the construction work during the construction of the project. We like to locally source whenever possible, so that provides some short-term employment for locals while the battery project itself is being constructed. And then in addition, the secondary support services that we would be using during development visits, construction, even operations, that housing, restaurants, like grocery stores, anything like that. There's lots of local services that we would want to be using while we're out there, which can provide some local benefit back into the community. And then some long-term benefits as well would be items such as the long-term tax benefit. So with this project operating for about 20 plus years, that would be about 20 years of increased tax benefits there. And then just industry diversification for municipal tax base as well. And then the long-term jobs that would also be required at our project site. So items or jobs such as like site management and continued maintenance of the BESS project on an ongoing basis. And then municipality items that you'd see as well are things such as permit fees and payments that would be made during development or during construction, even through to operations. And then like Cardinal, the BESS project would contribute to the safe and reliable electrical grid, which is always a benefit. And then onto the municipal support resolution. So as I'd mentioned kind of at the beginning, this is a key item that we've identified within the ISO procurement process that we want to have included in our December 20th proposal submission. So it's essentially a prescribed form that ISO did provide to us. They would I can share the prescribed form with Wendy, and then she could share it with the group, but I'd be happy if you want to reach out to me directly and I can send it over to you. But it's a prescribed form that essentially lays out what ISO is looking for specifically from us, specifically from you, and then how you can provide this clarity in terms of the support resolution. So it's essentially just identifying that we want to have a continued relationship with you to move forwards with these development conversations. It's nothing that actually gives us any guarantee, just for clarity purposes. It doesn't give us any guarantees that you're going to approve the project, give us permits, anything like that. It's just stating that you're willing to continue these conversations with us and you're not instantly shutting the project down, essentially, because ISO wants to ensure that they're reviewing projects that are actually potential to build and that we actually have the support of you guys behind us when we're going to put that submission into ISO on December 20th. So it is something that we are looking to get from you. We're hoping that you'd be able to provide this resolution as a suggestion to council to get that approval on this municipal support resolution for signatures so that we could get it again included in that December 20th proposal submission. And that is everything from my side. So I have my contact information here and then Keith's contact information as well. You're welcome to give either of us a call or an email, send us an email, and any questions, concerns, comments, or just general input that you would like to give. If you want to chat about the battery system in general, happy to take a call. You can always reach out. So that is in the meeting agenda as well for anyone who wants to access the contact information. But I'd be happy if there's time for questions. I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone has as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Ms. McLeod and Mr. Gilmartin for the presentation. Went on a little longer than anticipated. Certainly a hugely important project that we want to allow as much time as needed. So I'm going to open the floor to questions. I know there's probably several. So I'll start over at your side, Connor, if you have any questions. No questions. Mr. Mulder.
I have three. That's what we for sure. Maybe the how's the power generated to store the, for the batteries?
So we'd be connecting to the line and storing the power, the overage of power that would be coming through the line. So it would be a standalone battery system that we'd be proposing. So essentially it would not be connecting to any like wind turbine sites or solar fields. It would be connecting directly to the line to store the overage of power.
From your existing plant in Cardinal?
From the line that runs through there, yeah.
Okay, great.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because that answer wasn't clear to me. Is the power generated in Cardinal that's stored in these batteries?
Sorry, I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Sorry. So what actually happens is there's 250 kV lines, Hydro 1 lines that our facility is connected to. So during non-peak times, we would take power from Hydro 1, charge the batteries, and during peak periods when the demand is really high, then we would discharge those batteries over an 8-hour period. But so really, there is no, at this point, there's no plans to generate electricity, like more electricity in Cardinal. This is kind of still an emerging technology. As it's changing, it may evolve so that the existing Cardinal facility will charge the batteries and then discharge on basically on peak time. But the plan right now is really we'll charge the batteries from Hydro 1.
And get paid for it?
Yes. We'll get paid when we discharge the power back into the grid. That's correct.
Mr. Mulder?
Just a couple more questions. In your presentation, you said that the Indigenous groups need to be consulted. Have they been consulted on this project? And if so, what's their reaction?
Yes. So yeah, they do. They're requested to be consulted as per the ISO procurement documents. We have not consulted with them yet. We're just starting those consultations now to identify which ones are a part of the project footprint here and even adjacent to the footprint that we would want to reach out to and engage. So that will be forthcoming, and we would definitely be happy to let you know what their feedback is once we speak to them.
Thank you, and just two more, sorry. The environmental threat to the properties that you're looking at. Batteries, is there an perceived environmental threat to where these battery storages may be located?
There's none that we've identified to date. We haven't dug into like the EA assessments yet, so that is something that I would say is pending. But we're looking to most likely put in lithium ion batteries, which there's no acid there then, so there's no risk, there shouldn't be any risks of anything leaking out of the batteries like that could cause any contamination of the ground. But as we would have to dig into those environmental assessments just to confirm that there's no additional risks there that maybe haven't been identified yet.
And my last one, on the 29th of September, the Ontario government, I think, announced that they're going to extend, they're looking to extend Pickering for at least another year. Is this going to affect, would this have any potential effect on this project?
I don't believe so. I did see that as well. Yeah, I think it's extended to 2026 now, I believe. But ISO still has the need for it. So we haven't heard any feedback from ISO on that specifically in terms of how it could affect this procurement. So at this point, I'm expecting that they're moving forwards as planned.
Thank you. Councilor
I would have too many questions on it. Your first presentation was basically on the cogen plant that you're running now. The contractor bidding on, is this basically to allow you to run longer hours and sell more power back into the grid system?
Sorry, I had a hard time hearing that one. Was the question that would this allow us to run longer hours at the Cardinal plant to sell back into the grid system?
Yes.
So kind of like Herb had said, it's not necessarily that it's gonna change anything with the Cardinal plant in terms of producing more energy. It would be more storing the energy that's going through the line to be distributed during the peak hours. So my understanding from how we're developing and planning it so far is that it would not necessarily mean that anything additional would be produced at Cardinal Power.
So basically, on your battery, as explained here, it's a storage facility. If you're buying off the power off hydro, do you buy it off them, or are you just basically you're paying your rent for using your batteries to store their surplus power, so they don't have to basically give it away to the states?
Yeah, we would essentially just be storing the power. So yeah, we'd be getting paid to store the power.
One of the big reasons for this is to utilize all the existing infrastructure, like trying to build new transmission lines and that. Very, very expensive, and everything is done in my backyard. So we have the transmission lines, Hydro One have the transmission lines that are not fully utilized. So they're trying to utilize those better, so that you don't have to build new transmission lines, new generation facilities. It's to maximize everything, the existing infrastructure.
A good project, please.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for the presentation, both the presenters. So I've been following this IESO procurement process since about May or June, when I went on the first of their meetings, and they're meeting regularly. My major concern is that we do have a shortage of power. We know that there's no power available, additional power available to service either the Port of Johnstown or additional expansions in the Johnstown Industrial Park. Now, I'm really somewhat at a loss here. I'm worried about IESO's ability to be able to contract the 3,500 megawatts that they're hoping to contract by expedited contracts. And the reason I say that is because And perhaps one of the good things is that they have extended Pickering, because certainly in the presentations that I've heard, they were not going to be able to meet their requirement to get it up and running in time to meet the Pickering shutdown. So first thing I want to do is congratulate you for making the qualifications. There were 90 applicants and you were one of the 55 qualified. So they're looking to procure 3,500 megawatts. You're indicating to us that you're going to supply a certain number of megawatts from your battery storage on the off hours. You're going to take it on the off hours and put it back on the demand side. What capacity are you hoping to contribute to their 3,500 that they're looking for?
So we're looking to do about 156 megawatts of capacity.
156 megawatts. Okay, and what is your construction time?
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, assuming that you get your contract according to the timelines that you just laid out, I think it was February contract. Yeah, February the 28th contract offers. What would be your timeline to construction?
So that would depend on the process that we would go through with your township as well, just in terms of the approvals and permits that we would require there and the timing there. I think in terms of the construction itself, we expect to be able to build within 6 months roughly. But getting the development efforts done and all the environmental assessments done prior to that to satisfy all of the regulations would obviously be our first step. So understanding that further, which is something that we're actually working on right now with a consultant, is something that we would have to finalize before I can give a real answer in terms of when we'd want to start. But we're hoping ideally to start in about a year's time. That's the ideal plan.
And in their procurement process, do they give you a sort of an optimum timeline that they're trying to meet? And the second part of that question is, will you be able to meet it?
So they're hoping that we can get online in about 2024, 2025, ideally. So we're thinking that we should be able to, if everything goes well in development, fingers crossed, that we should be able to get online within that time frame.
Well, okay, then just in conclusion, it seems like a relatively benign project from my point of view, and I would certainly be prepared to support the resolution that you're looking for. And I think you did indicate that there's draft wording that you'll be supplying to our staff.
Yeah, yes, I can send over that draft wording, which is the ISO prescribed form that they released last week. I can send that over to Wendy after this call.
Okay, and then just one final comment, Mr. Chair. One thing is for absolute certain, and that is that if IESO is not able to get this 3,500 megawatts up and running in the timeline that they've needed, and Pickering goes down sooner, we will be seeing brownouts at this area of the province. There's no question. There's a shortage of power. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much to the presenters.
Yes, thank you. And again, thank you to the presenters. I just have a couple of questions, actually 3. Do you have any, or are there, I guess is the better question, are there any current sites of storage approximately the same size as you're proposing in operation today?
There are battery storage operating sites in Ontario. I don't know off the top of my head. I believe that there are some around the same size as what we're proposing. I know there is in the US for sure, but I would have to double check in terms of what we have in Ontario currently.
Okay, thank you for that. And just to follow up that question, I would be interested in knowing how many sites are already out there and where they are.
Absolutely. I can send that over.
Thank you so much, and Mr. Chairman, thank you. That's all I have.
Yes, thank you, really, Chair. I just have one. Your area that you picked down in between County Road 22 Marine Station and as far as north as on the other side of King Road. Is it possible that you could go to another location in our township? In other words, we have some land that's not being used, it's not ours, but it belongs to the provincial government. Cedar Grove Road, Rooney Road, etc. Is that possible to do this project?
I would say it's definitely something we can look into. We're not set on the land necessarily that we're looking into. We wanted it, like we kind of chose that area because it was close to the transmission line there. But if you are willing to send over or to share maybe by way of Wendy, if Wendy's okay with that, if you could share the areas that you're thinking of, maybe the parcel IDs or even just the crossroads, and we can look into it, then I can definitely see if we could potentially talk to those land or talk to that. Sorry, did you say it was not owned by you?
No, it's owned by the provincial government.
Okay, yeah, so maybe we could look into that and see if it's a potential to site the battery storage project.
Mr. Ward.
Well, good thing with being last is everybody asks all the questions before you get to. That's okay. You know, one of the questions I had, actually, first the statement, very interesting proposal, and there's a lot of benefit I see in it as far as the storage capacity goes. And I think we've talked to the fact that, you know, it is more about storage and not about, you know, bringing on board more capacity. But I hope it actually maybe potentially leads that as a soft benefit, that maybe down the road, you could bring more things in like solar and everything else down the road. But it was, you know, I think you've answered that question, so I don't need to know that. But I do think to Councillor Dillabaw's point there that, you know, I think getting support of the population in the township is really obviously dependent on those locations. So obviously downtown Cardinal less desirable versus other areas. So I would like to know that as well, but if that's possible to have it in another location. So interested to hear that. And then last but not least, you know, and I know it's hard to estimate, but you know, maybe at a per 50 megawatt rate or something. Can you estimate how many jobs would be able to come into the township because of this, just as supporting jobs, as well as the construction jobs, to be able to provide that for us as well?
I would be guessing, which I'm reluctant to do. We haven't built a battery energy storage project in the past also, so that gives a little bit of you know, unfamiliarity for me personally with guesstimating those jobs, and maybe even Herb, you would have a better idea. But like on regular renewable projects, like there's thousands of jobs that are construction jobs that are temporary jobs during construction. This battery storage project, they are expected to be a lot quicker to construct. So I would guess it would definitely be less than that, of course, but I would still expect that you would see, again, I'm guessing and I'm reluctant to do so, but a few hundred jobs, hopefully temporary jobs throughout the construction process.
Thank you.
Sorry, excuse me, I want to just chime in here. One of the things that I've got to say is a lot of the like contractors, there are not a lot of contractors in this area for some of the specialized work that we do. As we bring in these little places, I'm really hoping to see a contractor that will step up and say, hey, I can do this, I can do that. It's not going to be huge employment, but even, you know, 3-4 people, and start spinning it out from there. That's really my hope on this project. So, thank you.
I think this type of project, this type of energy storage is only going to get bigger, and I think it's good innovation. And I like to see that it's going to happen locally. Personally, I think it doesn't go far enough. So I would like to see subsequent projects in the future that would act as a buffer between Cardinal Power and that high voltage transmission line to aid in preventing brownouts, at least locally. And there's all sorts of islanding and anti-islanding technology that could help to keep power on locally when there's an issue elsewhere. And I think with the power already being generated, it makes sense to charge a battery with that power rather than bringing it in and then essentially playing the market with it. And if the power goes down, the town still goes down. I'd like to see, you know, phase 5 and 6, let's say, of something with this scope to provide energy storage for local industry and housing using the power that's generated right there. I think I think that's naturally going to happen, but I'd like to see some sort of verbal indication that that's at least on the horizon, instead of just having another form for a publicly traded company to make an income. I'd like to see some sort of sustainability and embracing of energy storage locally. I think there's so much potential in it. I'd like to see that at least as a footnote in this presentation, as some sort of future ambition, whether or not it's within the current project scope.
Thanks for the comments, Connor. Any final?
Good comment. No question. Mr. Chair. I know the company's looking for council's endorsement of this. I think really two of the fundamental questions I think need to be answered. I would hope prior to the endorsement is the consultation with the Indigenous people and the environmental threat. It needs to be looked at, because if either of them are, if the environmental threat doesn't, if it poses an environmental threat, I think it poses a risk. And if the Indigenous people are not supportive of it, again, I think it could reflect badly on the township. Just my comment.
And I think with any public use, part of that would, you know, part of before anything's granted, the EA would have to be, you know, done and solved as well as the Indigenous consultation as well. And so yeah, I think they feel be comforted by
Through the chair, I know it has to be done.
Yeah.
Before, but I think before we as a township endorse a project, I think as a township, we want to know that there is no environmental threat to the township, or that there's no opposition by the Indigenous people.
I think, yeah, and in fairness, I don't know what the request actually is yet, because they haven't put the request to us. The draft resolution that I have sounds like it's different than the one that they're asking for. So I think the concept is that we're supportive of them applying the continued application for this. That's all they're asking us for. They're not asking us to endorse the project.
I support it. I just like to see, you know, the T's crossed and the I's dotted, but I think I agree with the concept. We have to prevent burnouts. I agree with the concept. Don't get me wrong, and I support it. It's going to enhance the township, but it's just those little safety things I'm concerned with. Thank you.
I agree completely. You look like you had something to add. Sorry. No, Wendy, sorry. Yeah, no, okay. All right. So the way that I understand this then is that how do we deal with this? Because I had a draft resolution prepared, but do we want to wait and so what's the suggestion?
I can offer an alternative to chair.
Sure.
Committee recommend that staff bring forward IESO's drafted resolution of support to council for endorsement. Maybe bringing forward that draft that IESO has, and council could review the wording in that council meeting.
Okay. Did you want to add to that? No.
So once we haven't received it at this point, we don't know what the wording even looks like.
Yeah.
once it comes to us, we'll draft something up for council review and then it'll be discussed at that point. We don't really need to make most of this stage, I don't think, since it's kind of pretty vague.
Okay, so then we can move on. Okay, we can deal with the resolution at the council, having heard the discussion here.
No, just thinking.
Oh, okay. Then thank you to Herb, to Lori and to Lauren for the presentation today. I think projects like yours are definitely going to move us forward with electrical needs. There's certainly be a lot more needs. Like we're going to see industry doing a lot of these even themselves, buying power at night, storing it themselves and using it during peak time. I think it's certainly the short term and maybe the medium term future. So thanks for the presentation and looking forward to the resolution at our next council meeting.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on, my apologies. You're using it? Not using it. I've got mine. So
take it back though.
yeah, okay. I'll give it back, I promise. So we are on to the application for zoning bylaw amendment. The application for zoning bylaw amendment 3609 County Road 21 Malwood Sawmill. That is to schedule a public meeting, right? Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so do you want to give like a tiny Cole's Notes version of that then?
Sure, thank you, Chair.
John, at the beginning of the meeting, you said Mr. Malcolmson was on Zoom. Is that correct? Is he still there?
Yes, he is.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, actually, thanks for pointing that out, Mr. Mayor. I see that Chris is here as well, and
Chris,
I think his name, Chris Clark,
Is agent for.
which is Xander Plan, is online as well. So if committee has questions as well. So yeah, so but just before you get Wendy, sorry, go back to it. We're ultimately all we're trying to do tonight is schedule a public meeting, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Thank you, through the chair. So, yeah, really quick, we have an application for zoning bylaw amendment at 3609 County Road 21. This is the site for Malwood Sawmill. The application proposes an agricultural special exception zone to recognize the sawmill on the property as an on-farm diversified use. It would also limit the size of the sawmill operation. So as background reports, we have a preliminary report prepared by Novatech. We have the planning rationale prepared by Xander Plan on behalf of the owners. And Xander Plan also prepared a site plan for the application. So the Planning Act requires that at least one public meeting is held for the purpose of giving the public an opportunity to make representations in respect of the proposed bylaw. And staff recommendation is that committee direct staff to proceed with scheduling a public meeting date for the application filed for the landfill page at 3609 County Road 21.
The only thing we're approving tonight is that we're scheduling a public meeting, just for clarity. I get lost in the weeds here often, so. Okay, so questions, anyone? Swear?
so thank you very much. Now, did you say that the representative of Xander Plan is present there? I don't see the face.
Chris Clark. Yes.
Chris Clark. So, Mr., is it Mr. or Miss? Mr.?
Yeah.
So through the chair to Mr. Clark then. So I've read the Xander Plan review here very, very carefully, every single word on every single page. And on the last page, at least, well, it's not quite the last page, but second to last, there's a comment here. Overall, the use is permitted for the property without the need for a zoning amendment. And yet we're going to be asked to do a zoning amendment. So, and I can understand if it's just kind of a formalization of the site plan that we see in front of us, but could you tell me why we're proceeding to a zoning bylaw amendment if, in the opinion of the planners, the use is permitted for the property without the need for a zoning amendment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very well, Chris.
Perfect, thanks. So the need for the zoning amendment essentially is to establish or limit the size. I think Wendy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the concern of staff was if this use is permitted, what is there limiting it from increasing in size, in the future? So I think the zoning amendment at this point is to limit it to the size it is now, as shown on the site plan. So that way it can't just continually grow and expand to a size that's not permitted by, some of the supporting documentation of the province.
Fair answer. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Somebody else had their hand up, Chris.
Yeah, so, like, this might be to you as well, Chris, or might be just a general question to the business, but I've been doing this for too many decades as far as managing inventory and production. And I'd be worried that, 3.97 of 4%, that, inventories could fluctuate and push you over that 4% a little bit. And I don't know if, I'd rather have the ask once instead of being asked again 6 months from now. Is that 4% make sense, or is 4.5% or something like that a better number, knowing that it falls still below the 1 hectare limitation that we're talking about?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, again, the request was to limit the size. I think, we've shown a generous log storage. That's basically what's, generating a large quantity of the area here, is just once the logs are ready or need to be stored, where they're put on the property. So there was a little bit of talk in the planning report about temporary log storage, and like when deliveries are ready, trucks are going to come pick up the delivery. So the delivery might get put in a spot that's slightly outside of the 4%. Doesn't mean it's going to be used extensively or exclusively moving forward. If council is open to 4.5%, just in case, because we are so close, I mean, we could definitely change the ask to go up a little bit more. But again, we were just, we were slightly under 4%. So that's why we just rounded it up at this point. I guess it's really up to Mr. Malcolmson. If he feels that a little bit more area would be useful for the business moving forward, maybe he could, make a comment.
Okay, if I can have the floor here for a sec. The challenge we have is in the spring when half loads go in effect. So technically for the month of March and the month of April, we cannot bring in logs. And by the time then the half loads are lifted and the loggers get their equipment taken to the woodlots, and then they create their landings for then the haulers to pick up, we're almost 3 months without the ability to bring in logs. So the biggest challenge we have is how many do we bring in January and February to have us then survive that 3 months where no logs can be moved. So that is my biggest concern about limiting us to the 4%.
Comment, if I might, Mr. Chairman. So thank you very much again, Mr. Chair. So the publication 851 is a recommendation of 2% up to a maximum of 1 hectare. And at the 4%, you're still not reaching the 1 hectare maximum. So, and by the way, Mr. Clark, I did want to just make note of the fact that I thought that your review here was very, very comprehensive, and was able to follow how you have dealt with each of the issues sequentially in great detail. So listening to Mr. Malcolmson's concern about operations during the half load restriction, it might be an idea to take it up to the 1 1 hectare, and again, it's just a recommendation from publication 851, and I think there's room on the site to accommodate that without interfering with the agricultural land. Now, so that's just a comment on my part, but the question that I have, Mr. Chairman, if I could, is we do have a very comprehensive document here from Zanderplan, and our own planner has not really addressed the technical issues here. They've just recommended a public meeting. So my question is, does this entire package go to the public meeting?
Through the chair, yes, this will be included in the public meeting agenda.
Thank you very much.
I just comment on here. I think we're been brought up here. Very well documented planning that's been put forward here. And there's a little bit difference on to go to the 1 hectare, but it's not, but it would take us to 4.1 or something like that % land area to get to the 1 hectare. We're close to it anyway, I think.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Right now, the current use is slightly under 4% of the lot area, and the total area it takes up is 0.51 hectares. So we're about half of the maximum permitted, and that currently is 4%. And that's mainly because the property itself isn't a typical agricultural parcel, like, you know, a large rectangular shaped lot. It's got the river at the back, so you know it's slightly smaller in terms of what you don't see.
I wouldn't really see a problem with going just round it up to the 4% instead of 3.79 or something like that.
I think that's the suggestions.
Through the chair, the application requests 4%.
4%. Yeah.
So around.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is where I think, you know, I'd like to see if the business wants to reconsider that number, because, you know, I do think that, you know, the 4% is going to be very limiting. I'm not sure, you know, if I would say we want to go up to the 1 hectare without, you know, is there a possibility of converting some of the forested area into, you know, to compensate for that area? But, you know, I'd certainly be amenable to something in the 4.2, 4.5% range is the number I was in my mind having. So.
And as a business owner, we would not object to that. We would actually prefer that. So we don't have the stress we've had the last 6 months trying to run our building or run our business, having lumber stored at down the road at Tim Cooper's, or talking to Mick and Betty about moving logs into there. I mean, this has really created a lot of hardship for us. So 1 hectare would be certainly well received.
So back to staff. So we're hearing lots of different ideas floating around here. The way that I read this is that there was sort of a congruent agreement between both planners that are supported theirs at the 4%. Everybody was happy, and we were moving forward with scheduling a meeting. So I'm certainly hearing different viewpoints than that around the table. Do I have some suggestions from staff on how to deal with that?
Through the chair, I think that the pre-advice tonight was to actually schedule a public meeting, proceed to schedule a public meeting, and I would have a committee make that decision.
I move. Public.
Second. I don't seconded. 2 times seconded. Second one, 4th seconded. All right, so let's schedule an open meeting or a public meeting, correct? Let's get that done. We'll move on from there.
But just on that discussion, I think we saw a discussion after before we vote is, you know, I would like to make sure that the option is there to say, you know, or some other number is what I'm saying, because they're going to the public before and then changing it to 4.5, you won't have that same flavor of how they felt about it.
So that question goes back to staff.
So through the chair, I would say that 4% is a number that our planners may be satisfied with. I don't believe anything more. I'm not sure I can say anything clearer than that.
So it's been moved, it's been seconded, there's lots of different opinions on the table, I'm not sure that there's. I think everybody's going to agree to an open, or to a public meeting, that's for sure, I think that there may be a different opinion on the size, that's.
See the public.
Yeah, 100%.
I think council is gonna have time to discuss it, but right now. We can't even have a time frame for public meetings yet, can we? It's still under.
Yeah, so through the chair, that the case management conference has been set for November 30th, so we most likely would be able to set a public meeting. Most likely in November, so there's not an extensive delay in time frame. If for some reason that we're able to get that zoning bylaw appeal put the rest sooner than that, then we will certainly expedite that timeline. But it is likely probably near the end of November for that part.
Well, no.
Absolutely.
The case conference is scheduled for November the 30th. Correct. So there's no way we can hold a public meeting prior to that. But I mean, I don't understand how we could.
So through the chair, certainly couldn't make a decision, but there is nothing preventing us from holding a public meeting to receive feedback. That's.
Well, if that's the case, Mr. Chairman, we have several other public meetings in the same situation. So, I mean, if that's the case, that we can hold public meetings for the purpose of getting feedback prior to the case conference, I'd like to go ahead with this one and several others.
To the chair, that is the understanding of staff as well. It was really a time that was in limbo because we didn't have that case conference date. Now that we have that, we can schedule that timeline. Last thing that you would want is to schedule a public meeting in October and come to find out that your case management conference was in March.
I see your point. Okay. Proximity is
I think we can make those, we can move those yardsticks closer now.
That's good information, Mr. Chairman. I think you should call a question on the recommendation here.
Good. So we have that in front of us. It's been duly moved and seconded. Further comments, conversation. Hearing none, all in favor? No, not unanimous. All opposed, or anybody opposed? Just opposed. All right. Okay, so moving on to, we are on. Just for clarity, so you'll schedule the date for that. We'll find out the date of that public meeting as well.
Correct, yes.
Good. Okay. So last one is the site plan control agreement for Browsville Road 27888 to 21 Ontario Incorporated. To the development coordinator, do you want to give us a tiny bit of background?
Thank you. We received a site plan control agreement application for new development on Browsville Road. The proposal includes plans to operate their the owner's existing landscaping business and also to develop a self-storage facility on the property. The landscaping business will be towards the back area of the developed area, and it includes one building through private well and septic, surrounded by a gravel area. Towards the front of the property will be developed with a self-storage facility, which would include 2 buildings, also surrounded by a gravel area and some space for boat, RV, and trailer storage as well. The property is zoned highway commercial in both our previous zoning bylaw and our new zoning bylaw. The proposed self-storage facility and contractor's yard are permitted uses in the highway commercial zone. The So council delegated authority of site plan control approvals to our CAO. The CAO requires as a condition of site plan approval that the applicant enter into an agreement with the township regarding the works provided on the site plan. And such an agreement may be registered against land which applies in accordance with the Land Registry Titles Act. So a draft agreement is provided with this report for the committee's review. The owner and applicant have also reviewed this report and have stated no concerns. So staff recommendation is that committee recommend that council enter into an agreement with the owner of the property identified by PIN 68146-0430. That's the subject line as attached.
Thank you to the development coordinator. Interesting little piece of land on Roseville Road. Questions, comments? Anyone?
Please move the
This one's
recommendation.
pretty simple, yeah. We have a mover and mayor,
I'll second.
seconded by Chris. Are there comments, concerns, anyone? Yes. go ahead.
Just one question, and that's actually not so much a question as a comment. This particular piece of property, as of this point in time, does not have a civic number. And I know that we've had a push on, at least I have made the comment on several previous occasions, that where it has been our policy in the past to not issue the civic number until there's a house on the site. But we do know from the presentation we had some months ago that there is a widespread effort in the province of Ontario to try to give civic numbers so that fire department, ambulance, etc., can respond to what are basically vacant properties, because there may be an accident on such a vacant property, and without a civic number, the person who has been the victim of the accident or whoever's attending to them doesn't have a way of directing any of the rescue operations. So I would just like to ask that staff assign a civic number to this PIN number.
All right, no further comments. I'll call a question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody. Councilor Villabach, were you opposed?
No,
That's your hand, sorry.
Sorry.
Good, all right, so that is everyone. And did you have something that you wanted to add about photographs? Or
Oh,
we discussed that earlier?
I can do that now or later, whatever you like.
Oh, yeah, forgot. Yeah, so 6B is the work, the economic development. There was nothing under 6B, there's nothing under 6C. Counselor or member inquiries and notice of motion. Does anyone have any inquiries or notice of motion? Start with Mr. Maunder, then Connor.
First of all, in this August meeting, I asked our CAO about the wayward signs. I was told it'd be like 3 weeks or so before they be installed. He must be a Superman, because within 3 days they were installed prior to the swim meet, and they've been well received by the not only the residents of Johnstown, but people trying to find the South Hall and the dog park and the swimming pool. So I just want to extend my thank you to the CAO and the entire staff who are involved in getting those wayward signs posted. So again, thank you very much. And just notice that the South Edwardsburg Recreation Association is hosting a moderated all candidates debate October the 18th at 6:30 at our South Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Maunder. Connor.
Through the chair, I've been seeing discussions recently on social media, and I just wanted to bring up an older topic. I think it needs another look. Domestic fowl, and roosters specifically. I'm on a similar committee in Augusta Township, and recently they created a new bylaw for poultry on properties, and they took a different approach. They studied it quite a while, I suppose, and looked at a lot of different townships and recommendations. Instead of putting a lid on how much, they went the other direction and tried to see how much can you have, how many animals can you have on the smallest property, and then work up from there. And one thing that came up that I realized I hadn't thought of is there is an allowance for roosters, but in our bylaw for domestic fowl, it doesn't address roosters. If you look in the bylaw, it doesn't have the word rooster. It just has a maximum of female chickens or ducks. I think it could just be looked at a little more to provide clarity. I don't think you shouldn't be allowed to have any roosters. I understand on small properties and close properties, it's not something that is welcomed by everyone, but I think in areas where there's larger distances between properties, we could find a middle ground, because for food sustainability and protection of your livestock, traditionally roosters have been necessary. But I understand that there are noise complaints and things like that. I don't have a solution. I just wanted to bring it up as something that still isn't put to bed. And
So something you'd like to see brought back to a committee at a further date is domestic fowl. That's the inquiry.
eventually,
Yeah.
I don't have an answer. I just wanted to bring it back up so people can think about it and read different things.
I'd rather listen to a rooster than a crow, so they're a lot better.
So I just wanted to mention it. I think there's more angry people.
Good.
Sure.
I had Steve.
Oh, yes, I have nothing to do with roosters. I have some complaints of the new bell, I guess, and I don't know about Coach Go, but I had 2 or 3 complaints about doing the installation and leaving their water, not completing the installation. They're charging the people right away as soon as it's in the ground, $90 a month. A couple of people came to me Saturday at the big sale in Johnstown complaining that they were over 6 months before they came back to bury it, and they had to beg and chew and fight. The people aren't happy, and they just want us to be aware as council that we should be, if you get a complaint, we should be following up with Coach Go Val. So I just want to get all councils heads up on that.
Okay, no inquiry, just. Okay, anyone with inquiries or notices of motion? Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just, I don't know how to put this, but, at the, admin finance meeting, which is coming up, I think, about 8 days from now, I'd like to get a kind of a comprehensive report on what's happening with the, building on Dundas Street in Cardinal. I'm still getting constant inquiries. I've been talking to the CAO about that. Matter of fact, Ward 1 councillor and I met with the CAO and the building inspector about that. And I see there's been finally some work done around on the front side with a view to getting the front closed in. But I would like to see what the owners, if we have any concrete plans from the owner as to what the next step might be. So I would like to see if we can get some sort of a follow-up at the mid-finance committee meeting.
Thanks for the inquiry.
One last one. In Johnstown, the ditching is going ahead and it looks great. We just ran it. There was, I'll say, a small snag on Friday with garbage pickup. The road was closed. The garbage truck was unable to go down. Just wondering if there's a way we can do a public notice to, like, when the road, that residents can bring their garbage to the road closed sign, so that their garbage can be picked up, because it was left, on their driveways. They weren't aware that the garbage truck was not making its way down. I don't know how you resolve that, sorry, Mr. CEO, but.
Yeah, just an update on that, through the chair, we've been in contact with the HTC management and Coco paving, so the garbage and recycling that was missed on Friday, Coco will pick that up, and they'll probably use Matchett Parker to put on the bin, so we know the exact civic address. Bring that up for collection, and Coco will on Fridays bring that out to the probably Sophia and Second Street, so that's picked up and then returned during that construction end of it. It was a little miscommunication between all the parties at the start, but I believe that part has been resolved moving forward.
Good, thank you, CEO. All right, so nothing else, good. Oh, sorry, that's mine.
I don't have an inquiry, I just have one little statement. I think we owe a great deal of thanks to our community development coordinator. I just wanted on the record here, I know it was mentioned at council, but I think this community development meeting here, and we should be on record. What a great job she did at the international plowing match, the work she putting her photos together and everything, and getting it set up. And also for her outreach to Hotspot to ask them to donate their big games to the United Counties. And I took them back to them, and they're a very gracious couple, because they certainly didn't go back in shape, but they went out. And I think great thanks to our community development coordinator for a job well done. We certainly received lots of comments, because the nice pictures, a lot of people stopped and looked at when we were asking where they were and one thing and another. I don't think time and money well spent for the township. So my thanks for a great job done.
Here, here.
All right, moving on, question period, everybody's left us except from the deputy clerk. Closed session, we do not have any. I need a mover for adjournment. Greg Mondler, seconded by Chris Ward. All in favor? Adjourn.